Welcome to the World of Warcraft Arena World Championship, where 8 of the world's top teams will battle for cash prizes and a chance to be crowned the best of the best. Europe, China, APAC, and the Americas have all selected their teams to represent them here in Burbank, California. These 8 teams have proven they have what it takes to make it this far, but will they be able to bring down their rivals and represent their regions on the BlizzCon stage? There, they'll battle it out for a share of the $250,000 prize pool and the ultimate bragging rights of being crowned the 2015 World of Warcraft Arena Champions. Join us for every kick, every polymorph, and every glorious moment of combat the arena can handle as the World of Warcraft Arena Championships begin at BlizzCon opening week.
Hello and welcome back to the World of Warcraft Arena World Championships. I'm Jackson Bajira Blighton, joining you once again here live in Burbank for BlizzCon opening week. Now, as we said yesterday, we have the 8 best teams in the world competing today for a share of a $250,000 total prize pool and a chance to play on the BlizzCon stage. From North America, we have Cloud9, Follow Esports, and Tempo Storm. From Korea, qualifying through the Asia-Pacific Regional, Do It For Fun. Our Chinese team, Original Gangstar. And from Europe, SK Gaming, Skillcapped EU, and Solari Gaming. Now keep in mind, these guys did play yesterday, and our winners going into the upper bracket are going to be jockeying for position leading into BlizzCon because they guaranteed their spot on stage. Our teams that lost, however, will be in the lower bracket fighting to keep those BlizzCon dreams alive. In order to get down to the games, let's throw over to the casters and meet the guys.
Thanks so much, Bajira. Welcome back, everybody, to BlizzCon opening week. My name is Josh Allen, a.k.a. Lord, joined here at the caster desk once again by my good friends Jared Colston, a.k.a. VHEL, and, of course, Sid Compton, a.k.a. Super Tees. It's elimination day for a couple of teams today. 2 teams are going to be dropping out today.
Yeah, it's a very stressful day for 2 teams. Follow Esports could face elimination. They were kind of had their series almost stolen away yesterday. I'm really interested to see if they can bounce back. They will be fighting the Koreans Do It For Fun later this evening, but we've got a Titanus first match of the day between SK Gaming and Tempo Storm, EU versus US.
All right, and if we can take a look at the brackets to see how these teams have gotten here this weekend, because we've had some exciting matches already yesterday, and we have even more action for you today. Of course, SK Gaming did defeat Original Gangstar 2-0 in that match, and I know we're going to see a lot of 2-0s in these brackets, but man, if you didn't see those games yesterday, go look at the VODs. They were incredible. 2-0 does not paint the story of that match whatsoever. Of course, Tempo Storm did defeat Solari Gaming 2-0, and then one of our games later today is going to be Original Gangstar versus Solari Gaming. So that wraps up our Group A games so far this weekend. And of course, if we can take a look at the Group B brackets, we have Cloud9 defeating Do It For Fun. And that was another one that was extremely close. So that's another good one if you guys want to go back and watch some RMD action. That's a good one to take a look at. And of course, Skillcapped EU versus Follow Esports. And again, Sid just said that one felt like they almost got robbed in that one. So it'll be interesting to see if Follow Esports can come back from that.
Yeah, absolutely. I am super excited for all these matches. Like you were saying, even though there were a lot of 2-0s, they really felt those were super close games the entire time. Let's go ahead and actually take a real quick look back once again at the rules just to make sure everybody's on the same page here. Of course, the first game of every series is going to be played on the Grand Arena, and that's going to be a blind pick from both teams. They're not going to know exactly for sure which compositions their opponents are going to be playing, because a lot of these teams have multiple compositions that they can actually play, and so they might pick something that they think. There's a little bit of a mind game that goes on there. After the first game has been played, the losing team will be able to declare which map they would like to play on. Following that, the winning team will declare the composition that they want to play, and then the losing team has the option to counter-comp that choice and say, okay, well, you decided to play RMD, so we're going to go with a Shatterplay instead or something like that. So lots of back-and-forth action. It's led to, in previous tournaments, like at the European Regionals as well as the Americas qualifiers, it's led to a lot of very, very close series. And as we're getting deeper and deeper into these brackets, I would expect to see a lot more extremely close series coming up.
Yeah, definitely. This first 2 series that we're going to have today are going to be the closest, I think, of the tournament, completely involved between SK Gaming and Tempo Storm, leading off the day. And then following that, we're going to have an EU versus NA RMD showdown. But I don't really expect them to do that. Maybe their cockiness might get to them. They want to prove and say we're the best Rogue Mage Druid team in the world, and they might lead off with it. I would expect, though, the Shatter play to come out from Skill-Capped EU, as they do believe it is a bit of an advantageous comp decision. So I would expect to see Valet playing at least in his first game here today.
Yeah, and I definitely, I don't know, it's interesting sometimes when you see these teams where you know that they're really, really good at their main comp, and then when they do face that moment where it's the mirror, and it's like, well, I can prove that I am the best RMD in this situation. And then sometimes it's like, well, we want to play it safe and counter comp. So we'll have to see. Like you said, you know, maybe they might get a little cocky and want to prove that they're the best RMDs in that situation.
Yeah, and of course, as you guys just saw on the screen as well, if you'd like to join in the conversation on Twitter, use that hashtag WoW Esports. Let us know what your thoughts and predictions are as we're going throughout the day today. We had a lot of awesome predictions coming through yesterday, and we've been using those poll options as well, so keep an eye out for those. So you can sort of say, you know, maybe I think SK Gaming is going to win this one. Maybe not. You never know where it's going to go exactly. So it's been really, really interesting to see so far. It's been a nice little extra feature on the broadcast, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of that today.
Yeah, definitely. We're not the only ones here today to bring the broadcast to you. Let's jump over to Bajira, as he will be introducing Elliot.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Analyst Station. I am joined by the fourth member of our casting team, Elliot Venruki Vencel, a tournament veteran, going to be joining us today to break down these awesome games live, play-by-play. You got to be excited, man.
Yeah, absolutely. We had some incredible games yesterday. I'm looking forward to even better games today. It's going to be nice to continue the North American versus EU kind of rivalry, as well as seeing some of the Asian teams kind of redeem themselves. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it very much.
Yeah, I think these are games going to be awesome today, maybe with a little bit of surprises, maybe even right off the bat. We'll have to see. But these guys are going to be fighting for a pretty substantial prize pool as well.
Yeah, absolutely. These guys are going to be battling it out for a total prize pool of $250,000. The first place team, of course, going to be walking away with $120,000, second place $50,000, and down from there, as well as the title of BlizzCon champion.
Yeah, there is a lot on the line today, and I know that these teams are raring to go. And honestly, I cannot wait to get started. So let's throw it back over to the casters and get these games going for you guys.
All right, thanks so much. Yeah, I'm really, really super excited to get into this first match as soon as possible here. These are some of the, again, we're going for the upper bracket first here today, so we're going to be looking at some of the teams that already won yesterday, finding out who's going to come on top in their group and who's only going to come maybe second place or even have to battle for third place next week at BlizzCon.
Yeah, this is really important because we are moving from the group stages on to that final bracket. So we are going to separate the winner from Group A and then the winner from Group B on opposite sides of the bracket. So this is an extremely important match for these teams to secure their top seed going into there.
Yeah, it definitely is, and I know that Tempo Storm have prepared a wild card of sorts. They have Jamili potentially playing Arcane Mage and Peekaboo practicing Assassination Rogue alongside Elite, and it would be Elite's first debut. I don't even think he had a chance to play in the North American Regional, so it would be awesome to see him on the stage. Maybe this is going to be Elite's chance to shine. Obviously, we have to go through the draft process first to decide that, but I would be really excited to see an Arcane Mage on the BlizzCon stage.
Yeah, that could be really exciting. And to get us into these games, of course, we do have to get the teams out here on the stage. So let's go ahead and introduce SK Gaming. This, of course, is Team SK Gaming coming all the way from Europe. Right there in the front, we have Joe Fernandez. Following right behind him, we can see that is Swapsy, followed by Botar with Fabs down at the end. These guys have been playing absolutely amazingly in every single series that we've seen so far. Obviously, winning in their earlier game to be able to get here to this match. They've been playing incredibly well. And also, this was the team that came in first at the European Regionals.
Yeah, they did a great job in the finals. That was one of, I would say, this team, for me, that was their defining match. Like that brought these guys onto that next level for me. Like they really proved that they deserved to be at BlizzCon.
Yeah, and they actually lost to Skill-Capped EU earlier in the tournament, so it's cool to see the evolution of the teams throughout the brackets and kind of evolve and adapt and get better and be able to take the win at the end of the day. And that's exactly what a tournament is for, is to decide who is the best, who can evolve, who can improve the most.
Of course, they are going to have some very, very fierce competitors that they will be facing off against here today. So before we go on any further, let's go ahead and introduce Tempo Storm. All right, Team Tempo Storm, we see Elite walking out in front, followed by Starship. Right behind him is going to be Peekaboo, and down at the end is Jamili. These guys have been very, very fierce in all the matches they've played so far. They came in second at the Americas Regionals, but up until that point, and even during that series, they were just looking very, very strong as a team.
Yeah, they did end up taking second place in North America, so it will be the second place North American team versus the first place team from Europe in this specific matchup. And I know that there's a lot of pride on the line between these teams. It's not even really about the money between them. You often see them bickering, saying, no, US is clearly the best. No, we're definitely the best. Your RMDs don't know what they're doing. You turbos don't know what you're doing. And it's going to be great to finally get to settle that with action rather than words.
Oh, no, absolutely. And I do like that it isn't just like some forum posts that are determining, which continent is better, whether it's the Americas or the EU. We have it on stage at this point, so I'm excited to see this matchup.
Yeah, we're just going to actually find out the actual answers to these questions instead of trying to speculate about, the RMD plays this way or the Turbo plays that way. But we should find out what comps these guys are actually going to be playing. So let's go ahead and take it over to the draft and find out what has been locked in. Of course, that first game is going to be Nagrand Arena. SK Gaming, you can see, is going to be playing that Turbo Cleave.
It's there.
But look at that. On Tempo Storm, Assassination Rogue. Yeah, okay, that's a little bit different. And oh my, is that an Arcane Mage? I see.
Channeling that baby Michael. That's what's going to go on. It is crazy to see when the meta shifts in WoW and what causes it. Sometimes it'll be like a hot fix and one class will get like slightly nerfed, and then everyone's like, oh, we can't play that class anymore. Let's find out some other crazy strats. But this wasn't because of any buffs, any hot fixes, anything. This was just somebody found the secret to defeating Druid teams, and it is an Arcane Mage.
Yeah, the spell steal key that the Arcane Mages have allow them to remove healing overtime effects, gain it themselves, and access a heal. So spell steal is like a 3-for-1 value global cooldown, and Arcane Mages don't run out of mana nearly as fast as the other specs of Fire and Frost. So I'm really glad that Tempo Storm is going to be leading with their wild card to try and surprise their opponents, as at this stage in the tournament is a best-of-3 format. If you take that first win, even by a gimmick, even by someone just overreacting to the damage, as SK Gaming probably doesn't have barely any, if at all, any practice against this composition. So I'm really happy. I think it's a smart strategic decision from Tempo Storm, and I'm excited to see how it plays out.
Yeah, I think SK Gaming was already beginning to travel by the time that this comp has started to show its face on the North American ladders. If they were, maybe watching some streams, I think Venruki was actually playing it the other day on his stream. So it was interesting to see, like, even somebody who just picked up this comp, being able to play it so well because he's so familiar as Frost Mage. So tossing him on an Arcane Mage, it isn't too foreign. There's a lot of little subtle differences, and you had your burst potential, using your cold snap to reset your palm, stuff like that. That's going to be a little bit different. But when you have a mage like Jamili, who knows this game in and out and can play so many different classes, switching over from Frost to Arcane, I don't think it's going to be a problem at all.
Oh yeah, definitely. And we've seen him practicing this a whole bunch as well backstage, so we know that he's going to be comfortable on that Arcane Mage. Before we move on any further, we do have a Twitter poll coming in for you guys. If you want to go ahead and participate using that hashtag WoW Esports, you'll also be able to give your predictions. Who do you think is going to win? Right now, it's 100% in favor of Tempo Storm. I feel like that's going to change as time goes on.
I think
use
people
that hashtag SK and use that hashtag Tempo Storm. I think now that people know that they should be tweeting this out, maybe we'll see that number change a little bit, because this seems like a fairly even matchup to me between these two teams.
I think Mitch Jones might have stacked the polls there. He wants to live the Arcane dream. I mean, if Arcane wins BlizzCon, what can you really do after that?
I'm going to be really sad if Mitch isn't watching this series. We need to go and shame him if he's not watching this series. I'm so excited for that. But it is great that these polls are showing up, because there's a lot of NA-EU rivalry going on, and so we definitely have a lot of EU fans in like Twitch chat, for example. I'm sure they're just spamming NA or EU, And you got to give a shout out to Twitch chat though. We were watching it briefly before when we start, and you guys nailed the countdown almost exactly when we were going into this, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So shout out Twitch chat.
Yeah. Get a few Kappa Ross going in there as well.
Oh man.
I want to ask you guys a question though about this upcoming matchup. So the Arcane Mage, we've talked about that a lot already, and how it's actually become a really, really strong class to actually play. But I'm curious about the choice of Assassination for the Rogue and then using the Holy Paladin as the healer. How does that tie? Because obviously, normally when you play RMD, you want to have like a Subtlety, sometimes Combat Rogue, but usually Subtlety, and you want the Druid, obviously, for the heals. But what they're actually switching up here is they're switching over to the Paladin. RM Paladin is still a pretty good composition, but it's the Assassination Rogue is what really gets me. I'm not quite sure what's the purpose of that change.
It's specifically the ability called Vendetta, so it's a very long cooldown, but it makes the Rogue almost completely able to solo his target. So often what will happen is the Arcane Mage will blow his Arcane Power, use all of his damaging cooldowns. That will force a cooldown out from SK Gaming. After that, then they can follow it up with the Assassination Rogue on Vendetta, and it's really up to SK Gaming to always have an answer. Trade the cooldown 1 for 1, even all the time, and if they end up not having cooldowns, that's exactly what Tempo Storm's opportunity is to strike back and take a win. I've seen them practicing on the ladder an extreme amount, and they've been just dominating at least all the North American turbos, and I know that SK Gaming's got a word for them as well to try and prove that they are in fact the best in the world and they can deal with this situation. But it's definitely going to be interesting if Tempo Storm can take that 1-0 lead with this comp, and I'm curious to see what they would do after that fact.
Yeah, it would be interesting. Maybe this is because the first game is so important in these matchups, because even if you win your first one, right, and then the enemy team gets to pick the map, and then they get to counter you, basically. But if you win, if you lose that, then suddenly it is your map pick, and it is your counter comp at that point. So winning this first map by surprise is going to be gigantic for this team.
I think Fabio might even get an opportunity to play today, as it might be a good option to do what the Holy Paladin. Warlocks are a strong suit against Holy Paladins. Holy Paladins have much more burst-based single target healing. They don't deal with AoE nearly as effective as, for example, a Restoration Druid like Starship. So we might actually see the mind game switching the 4 players in here used a lot more often. I'm really curious to see. Obviously, just the Arcane Mage enough is blowing my mind.
yeah, definitely. And he may be blowing some opponents' minds as well here with that sheer burst damage that they're going to be capable of. However, as these players are getting everything ready, we did manage to get a chance to talk to SK Gaming a little bit ahead of time. And so we have a little bit of a video piece we can show you guys and get their thoughts on just generally the tournament and how they're feeling going into this.
I think we can beat both Cloud9 and Tempo Storm. Even though they were playing RMD, they didn't practice as much as we did. We win them with both setups. We play easily since they don't care about the details. They only care about the meta game and how people play on US. They adapted to that. But at the same time, the turbos on US aren't as strong as our team, because they tried a lot, but they didn't try everything. They didn't try the small things and the defensive management.
That's some very interesting thoughts coming out of Botar there, talking about how they haven't tried the small things necessarily, because even the small things can really have just a big influence in how, like, we've seen things like, I'm going to use Cloud9 as an example, doing stuff like chaining CC long enough to be able to get a blind off and then a sap off, and that's something that a lot of the top-end players have now picked up on, but for a while that was something that very few rogues were actually able to pull off effectively.
Yeah, I think those were kind of more some silent shots. He wasn't really being very loud with it, but it was kind of saying some shots at the US turbos at least. And now they're going to have to back up their words, however, here in this first match of the day. Very excited to see it between Tempo Storm and SK Gaming. As we've said, the Arcane Mage, Assassination Rogue, Holy Paladins locked in for Tempo Storm. The Turbo Cleave is locked in now for SK Gaming as well. I'm just more than excited to jump into the game, and look what we've got. We've got a game right in front of us.
All right, that is going to be SK Gaming on your left, of course, Tempo Storm on your right, and Elite on Holy Paladin. Jamili playing that Arcane Mage, so pay attention to everything that's going on with him. And Peekaboo on Assassination Rogue. So this is going to be a very, very interesting match.
Yep, right away we're going to be looking for Peekaboo to try to go for that good opener. You got the sap onto Swapsy. That's what he wanted right off the start, but are they going to push in off of this? Or are they going to wait for just a second? Looks like they were trying to wait back for just a second, but Joe Fernandez caught sight of Jamili and was immediately able to charge in there. Now the cheap shot onto Swapsy, the full Fist of Justice onto Botar. They're trying to put a ton of damage into Swapsy, and they're pulling it off. Ring of Frost onto Botar. Swapsy already in a lot of trouble, but holding onto his Shamanistic Rage for so long. Now the blind comes out onto Botar. He's going to trinket that immediately. Swapsy gets put into a short kidney shot, but they've come out of this amazingly well with no major cooldowns used just yet out of SK Gaming.
That was great cooldown usage out from SK Gaming, only using the Vigilance to answer the Vendetta, going 1 for 1. SK Gaming have definitely practiced a lot here against this specific composition. Now they hold on to the Shaman Rage, they hold on to the Iron Bark as well to deal with any oncoming damage. Peekaboo's feeling the heat, down to 40%. Cheap shots onto both DPS. Shaman Rage immediately coming out from Swapsy as Botar is caught into that full polymorph. Elite pops the Avenging Wrath here to try and do a bit more damage as well as catch up on the healing here. Shaman Rage is going to be fading in about 5 seconds. Botar has to be careful for the next Palm Sheep. He needs to make sure that he pre-Iron Barks it.
Yes, Peekaboo is going to be the targeted choice. You can see him spamming that feint, and he does get Shockwave again with the Freedom on him too. And wow, Cyclone 2, I like that play right there. It's going to tick out a bunch of the remaining time on that Avenging Wrath since it's so much healing output. Peekaboo down to half, catches a decent heal at that point, and you can see Botar is on top of this game. Peekaboo is constantly affected by Fairy Swarm.
Yeah, they just really haven't been able to put out much damage, and also keeping him in combat and able to re-stealth is so important for SK Gaming in this. The Fist of Justice onto Botar, are they going to force any sort of cooldowns out? The
double ring? Double ring into triple ring into Poly. I think
Swapsy's in trouble. He's caught down to 20%. Botar is still CC'd. If they can follow it up at all, they might be able to end it, but they're not going to be able to. Joe Fernandez is going to shut it down with that triple shockwave. Well done from Joe. Defensively here, Sham Rage is available for Swapsy for the next setup. SK Gaming are looking good. They're setting up onto Peekaboo with the bash. Down to 30%. He's going to pop the evasion. A little bit of overlap with the save by the light. So SK Gaming getting a bit of a cooldown lead here into the middle of this match. Hex over on Jamili. That's going to sit full. It is going to break to the dot damage. However, Peekaboo getting picked up by Elite. Vendetta coming up into in about 5 more seconds. Joe Fernandez needs to react quickly when that Vendetta comes out from Peekaboo.
Yeah, now focusing a whole lot of damage into Jamili over here. We have seen them primarily focusing on Peekaboo, but they still want to make sure that Jamili is going to have to stay feeling a little bit defensive, and they don't want him using his Ice Block too offensively to break CCs. The Iron Bark comes out onto Swapsy, limiting a little bit of that damage and allowing him to hold onto his Shamanistic Rage just a bit longer, and they're continuing to turn it back around onto Peekaboo. The Cloak of Shadows comes out, the Death from Above. He actually got a Blessing of Protection on him there for just a second. They were a little bit worried. Elite was just a little bit worried about Peekaboo's health for just a second, just long enough to get another heal off onto him, and now Peekaboo's going to pull back over here behind this pillar, and he's actually going to be able to get a re-stealth off,
SK Gaming are a wall in terms of defense. They haven't overlapped a single thing thus far through the game, which is why it's gone on for 3 minutes. Tempo Storm has been knocking around the US Turbos within the first minute. SK Gaming are putting up such a good fight. We see another setup out from Tempo Storm. The Shamanistic Rage is going to answer that. Will it be enough? Jamili connects the Ring of Frost. Botar has to save his Trinket. Thankfully, he did pre-shift the Ring of Frost. Now that comes the blind. Trinkets that immediately into a DR'd Ring of Frost. Unfortunately, staying on top of the effect a little bit too long. Sham Rage is now falling off, down to 47%. If Tempo Storm can keep up this momentum, the next Hodge could end the game potentially.
Yeah, and what I really like about Joe Fernandez is all of his shockwaves have been hitting 2 or 3 targets almost exclusively. You see when Elite is pushing up and trying to help out there, that Joe Fernandez is immediately identifying it and landing those, and it's so important with that stun cooldown.
Yep. They're now once again focusing on Peekaboo for the time being. He does get into that full bash. He doesn't have Feint up. He could just die right here. The Blessing of Protection comes out at 7% health. Peekaboo is gonna stay alive, but just barely.
Jamili sheeping Swapsy so the Bob couldn't get purged. That was absolutely perfect. But Jamili is in trouble also. As you see, he has 3 stack right now, trying to get those polymorphs out as he is using that Evanesce to, be immune instead of running that Ice Block, as Botar is going to be sheeped, and that Sham Rage comes out immediately by Swapsy.
Yeah, but a bit of an overlap between the Iron Bark and the Sham Rage, so there's going to be a bit of an opening here. Vendetta coming up in about 9 seconds, and SK Gaming are going to have to soul-heartedly rely on the damage reduction cooldown out from Joe to be able to survive the next setup. Joe is holding onto his Trinket patiently. He knows that he needs to be able to activate that Vigilance onto Swapsy when the time comes, but Vendetta is available. Arcane Power is coming up for Jamili. Tempo Storm, they're pulling the trigger. Full Hodge onto Botar. If he connects the Ring of Frost, it could be the game. The Vigilance comes out. Will it be enough? Death from Above connects. Swapsy down to 30%. Gift of the Naru trying to kite away here and stay alive. Down at 30%. Ring of Frost is going to fade. Botar connects the NS. Triple Trent down. And Swapsy is going to survive.
Oh, what happened to that poly? Did it get grounded? Because he had that poly channeling on Botar while he was in that ring. And actually the Treants got hit by the ring too, so that is great for Tempo Storm. Unfortunately, if that poly would have connected, I think they would have killed him.
Yeah, but Swapsy somehow, some way is still alive, and they're now turning it back around once again onto Tempo Storm. Peekaboo could be in a lot of trouble. There's no Blessing of Protection available to save him this time if he dips down low again. Jamili just channeling those arcane missiles, trying to turn around as much as possible, does manage to force out the Iron Bark onto Swapsy, but Swapsy does have the Shamanistic Rage available. Botar is caught into a Fist of Justice. Do they have any follow-up CC for him? Yes, they connect the full Polymorph. That's immediately going to force out the Shamanistic Rage, but Peekaboo is getting so low. He has the Cloak of Shadows, but is that going to be enough to keep him alive through this damage? Joe Fernandez is just going to town on him right now, but it looks like Elite's going to come out. He's going to pop pop his Avenging Wrath, and he's going to be able to keep his team topped off.
Where did that blind go?
I'm not sure. I think it ended up actually breaking. But Recklessness coming out from Joe, pairing that up with the Avatar. Joe's going to be doing a lot of damage. Jamili realizes this, polymorphing him on that increase of damage. Well done from Jamili. Pressure onto Peekaboo, though. He's been the primary target, always down at half HP. Elite still has a few more seconds of the Avenging Wrath, but he goes into the full fear. Well timed from Joe, into the charge stun onto Peekaboo. He follows up with a Shockwave. There's no trinket for Peekaboo, dipping dangerously low at 26% into Execute Rage, and SK Gaming can take the game here if they can connect. Defensive Smoke Bomb comes out. Joe comes into it and finishes the job, and Tempo Storm are going to go down in game number 1.
Wow. What a great game right there. You know, we did see the power of the Arcane Mage there. It was just that split-second grounding or shock at the shear at the very, very end of the cast. I thought I saw the cast go off, so it must have been grounded.
Yeah, it had to have been. I saw the same thing, and it was like, okay, they're in so much trouble here right now. But no, actually, SK Gaming able to stay alive just long enough to be able to finally get that kill. I thought Peekaboo was going to live forever at that last bit too. Like, he stayed at 17% health for so long, even with the defensive smoke bomb going down to make sure that Joe Fernandez couldn't charge onto him. But that just wasn't enough. Joe Fernandez could just waddle all the way over there, push execute, and that was the end of that game. So that's going to put SK Gaming up 1-0 in this best-of-3 series.
And it's interesting to see the interview that we had with Botar prior to the series, as he said, you can't sweat the small stuff, and you really could see it in that last match. Really no defensive cooldowns were overlapped. Joe was very patient with his trinket, holding onto it the entire game to make sure that he could activate his defensive cooldown when it was needed, not playing too aggressively, not playing arrogantly, and they played it perfectly to point as if they've been playing against it their entire life.
Yeah, that was a very, very clean match.
That's a good way to start off the day.
It wasn't what I was expecting, too. I would have expected they would have reacted oddly, maybe trying to go on the Arcane Mage or maybe trying to train the Paladin down, but I liked that the target was Peekaboo every time they knew that they can land him into that stun.
Yep. All right, so we are going to head over to Jackson over at the analyst station to take a look at the Windows 10 game DVR replay.
All right, guys, as you mentioned, Laura, what a great way to start the day. That game was incredible, and I definitely think it came down to the defensive usage, as you guys mentioned. Let's take a look at the replay here to see how the game ended. But I do want to talk a little bit about how Tempo Storm ended up being countered a little bit by SK Gaming's extremely patient defensive cooldown usage. And what I mean by that was, once again, we saw Botar only use Trinket on blind. There was a moment where the blind hit, and VL was like, what happened to the blind? Instantly trinketed it. And in addition to the Trinket usage, we also had Joe Fernandez saving Vigilance every time Vendetta came out. And when they were able to finally wear down this team, endure the Arcane Storm, they ended up scoring a kill on Peekaboo there at the end. But I definitely think these guys, despite maybe not seeing Arcane that much, definitely seem to know how to deal with it. And I think that Tempo Storm has their work cut out for them in this next match. I'm not sure if anything is going to change, but are they going to stick to their new Arcane comp, or are they going to have to go back to their classic RMD? Either way, let's get into this next game because I cannot wait to see how it goes. Back to the casters.
Thanks so much, Jackson. Yeah, we actually saw two very important differences between how the North American teams tend to play Turbo versus how SK Gaming was playing Turbo there. One was that they were running that Vigilance on Joe Fernandez, which we haven't seen as often until very, very recently actually showing up in North America, but in Europe, that kind of seems to be like the go-to in this matchup. The other one is that they were primarily focusing on the Rogue as their kill target. A lot of times you see people going after the Mage over and over and over on the Mage, trying to get through those two ice blocks because the thought is, we get through two ice blocks and then he just dies. But they're just sticking on the Rogue the entire time, and as soon as that feint fell off in that last little bit of a stun there, just big chunks of damage came in, and that was it.
Yeah, but in this specific situation, I know you're probably referring more to RMD. It's just that the Arcane Mage doesn't have the ice block. It's a little bit more constant defensive management through spell steal.
You're right.
Yeah.
And you can even use Evanescence if you need to defensively. It just seemed like SK Gaming was ready. I don't know if they spent an all-nighter in the hotel room together watching videos of Arcane Mage, Assassination Rogue, Holy Paladin, because they're just on top of it. They were just an unstoppable wall, because I can tell you for a fact that I've seen Tempo Storm practicing on the ladder and just rick-rolling every turbo that they met. No, it wouldn't last more than 30 seconds, and SK Gaming lasted, what, almost 10, 12 minutes
Yeah,
almost?
that was good.
Towards the end?
The thing is, you just can't kill an Arcane Mage. When the enemy team has a Druid, like you were saying, that spell steal is just so impactful. Jamili, if he wants to, can just chain strip Hots off of it, healing himself, stealing the Hot. It's just constant. And we knew that they couldn't go on the Mage. That wasn't going to be the target. But the fact that they killed Peekaboo like so easily over and over was crazy.
Yeah, the burst was huge out from SK Gaming, constantly setting those up. It really was that fear also towards the end that Joe timed right for the last seconds of the Avenging Wrath so that Elite couldn't benefit from the increased healing, chained that over into the charge stun, into the shockwave. He really set that up well, and the patience from Joe as well. Usually in a matchup against a mage, you get frustrated, you're getting polymorphed over and over, you just want to play, you want to attack stuff, and you'll end up trinketing recklessly, but he held onto it the entire game, so there's a lot of resolve on SK Gaming. They know exactly what they need to do as a 3-man unit. Now it's up to Tempo Storm to respond.
Yeah, and we're going to find out if they do anything different to respond as we do have the draft finalized. We're going to find out which map they've chosen as well as which compositions both of these teams have locked in. It's looking like Tiger's Peak is Tempo Storm's map choice for this next matchup, and they are going to be sticking with that Arcane Mage.
All right. Might as well.
I guess maybe they just don't feel that confident in their Rogue Mage Druid. It's a similar kind of matchup. Maybe they're just hoping that the Assassination Rogue Arcane Mage combo will be a bit more of a gimmicky kill. Maybe even be able to kill through Shamanistic Rages. I've seen that happen on the North American ladder.
And they actually went for it early on, and they almost did it through Swapsy's wall. Like we said, you know, one more polymorph that would have landed and he would have been dead. So, I mean, they were really, really close to the kill. So I actually like that they're sticking to this.
Yeah, I think it's a smart decision as well. If they can polish up the play a little bit in terms of damage dealing. I'm not sure if the smoke bomb was readily available there to be used defensively, but it did allow him to survive at least one execute. You can tell that Peekaboo, Jamili, and Elite are always mastering their own class. And again, even for them, they haven't really played the composition a lot. So they're trying to catch SK Gaming off guard, but they might be catching themselves off guard a little bit in terms of what they need to do. We saw that really clutch bop out from Elite down at 7%, as you said, was cross crowd control to the polymorph onto Swapsy, so he wasn't able to purge it off, and it kept him alive at 7%. So there were great plays from both sides, but SK Gaming just playing it textbook style, as if they've been playing against it, like I said, their entire lives. So I'm interested to see if Tiger's Peak will really prove to be too much of an advantage. I kind of doubt it. I know that Tempo Storm are going to be avoiding Dalaran Sewers. They don't want to stack up for triple shockwaves, probably avoiding Runes of Lordaeron for a similar effect. So Tiger's Peak is kind of the safe one. You're definitely not want to go to Blade's Edge. I'm a bit surprised that they didn't go for Tolvaron. But Tiger's Peak is still safe as well. I just think that Tolvaron might have been a little bit more advantageous. Obviously, they've been practicing a lot in the past 3 days, and I haven't had an opportunity to see it other than from their side of it. So I'm going to trust them on the map pick here. And I'm just still ecstatic that the Arcane Mage is actually still in it. They're not giving it up. That game was very close nonetheless, and I'm excited to see if Tempo Storm can pull it back or if SK Gaming is just going to wipe the floor with them.
And another crazy thing about that bop that was at 7% that the Shaman got sheeped on, he had Ascendance up also. So it wasn't just those purges. Like, he was going to go to town onto Peekaboo if he wasn't crowd controlled in that exact moment. So great job by Jamili during that moment.
Yep, and as this game is about to get underway here, we do want to check in real quick on the results of that poll that we put up before the first game and find out what you guys at home think is going to be the result from this matchup. Now, after that, even after that first game, SK Gaming up 1-0, but it's still looking 72% for Tempos. It's got to be. It's the Arcane Dream, man.
You're holding on to the
Mitch Jones'
Arcane
army
Dream.
Is tainting that poll a little bit.
A little bit, man. He's fluctuating it on Twitter probably. But we can see the gates are about to open. Tempo Storm sticking to their original composition in match 1. Let's see if they can pull a win off here in match 2. Peekaboo crossing the map with his Shroud of Concealment and his entire team not visible to SK Gaming just yet. Let's see who they choose to use the sap on. Maybe they're just going to go right away for Swapsy. I would expect maybe Tempo Storm to be bouncing around on targets as they know that Botar is most likely using his trinket only on blind. I'd like to see them exploit that.
Yeah, where is Botar right now? Okay, so he is out behind right near there. He's hiding behind there. Already has the mushroom out, you know, for that healing and stuff. We see the double cheap shot going right away. So let's see if Peekaboo can make something happen with this, as he is going to get feared out while he's in stealth right now. That ring does come down though. Oh wow, look at the double ring. As it looks like they are going to be going on to Swapsy. That Vendetta is just barely ticking out right there, but Swapsy's at full health at the moment. So Peekaboo trying to connect back onto his target. Looks like something might be going on with Peekaboo at this moment. No, there he goes. Now he's going to find his target as immediately that sack and evasion comes out.
Okay, yeah, we did just get confirmation that there is some sort of tech issue going on, so we will be restarting this game and coming back into it here very, very shortly. We want to make sure that everybody is playing very evenly. Yeah, it definitely looked like there was something weird going on Tempo Storm's side.
The jump around in circles as a rogue out of stealth isn't the greatest strat you want to do with this case, so I was wondering what was going on there, but we'll have to see what's going on. Probably, headset, keyboard, something. They'll figure it out, though. We have some great admins and tech people to stand by on this one, but another exciting match. That opener was kind of going in favor of Tempo Storm. I liked the double ring at the start. They were going to try to kill through again right from the start. We saw the extremely early Vendetta. What do you think about using Vendetta in the opening versus holding on to it?
I mean, he would like to use it when Joe Fernandez doesn't have a trinket, but in this specific matchup, Joe's just not giving it away.
Yeah.
He's playing very greedy with it, and I mean, there's something here for Tempo Storm to exploit, and I think I was pointing it out that I think they should go after Botar's trinket because it's a fall save. He's always trinketing blind, so maybe save for the next setup, use the next kidney shot to swap, and maybe polymorph swapsy. Barkskin's a much weaker defensive cooldown as opposed to Shamanistic Rage. If you do it in an in-between setup when Vigilance isn't available, you can basically 100-0 Botar probably if he's not caught in bear form through Barkskin as this composition, as long as he leads there to participate some denounce damage as well. So I'd like to see them try and exploit something different. They played very standard in the first match against Swapsy, just setup after setup after setup. And SK Gaming, they were ready to play that. There's, I'm here, you can't get past me. I'm probably the best goalie in the world if I was going to play a sport. So they really need to, I think, kind of mix it up, go for some different targets, swap around a bit, and try and get SK Gaming off footing.
Yeah, it's really interesting. One thing that you mentioned there, actually, that the denounce coming out from the Holy Paladin, that's one important thing to think about, because while a Resto Druid obviously can do a fair amount of damage while they have Heart of the Wild active, it kind of falls off when they don't have that active anymore. Whereas the Paladin, with that denounce damage, they can sort of keep that going the entire time, and not only does it do a fair amount of damage on it, it was hotfixed to be a little bit less damage relatively recently, if I remember correctly, but it does still do a fair amount of damage, and it also makes it so that they can't crit.
And that's the big part about this, because if Botar's in a full CC and Swapsy's the only person that can heal, and he's healing himself with no crits out of a enhanced shaman, it's a massive difference in the self-heal.
Yeah, it definitely is. You want your healing surges to be critting as often as possible, and the denounce is, I really think maybe Elite could have actually participated a bit more aggressively with damage. Obviously, you're in a tournament setting, you don't want to throw the game because you missed time a heal or something like that, but as this specific composition, definitely the Holy Paladin damage is an advantage that you need to take. If Elite isn't participating damage during kills, that's when you don't have enough to push through Shamanistic Rage. So possibly Elite playing a little bit too safe. You can't blame him for wanting to do that, but
I think maybe he got scared after the beginning, because as we saw at the beginning of that grand match, when all three players kept getting shockwaved over and over, I think after the second or third shockwave, he's like, I'm out. I don't want to feed him that cooldown reduction. I want to make sure that I'm sitting back a bit more, and it put him out of CC range a lot. So I think maybe that's what happened there, and he just kind of got a little bit scared, because he was right in the middle, right at the start, you know, hodging Botar, setting up for that, you know, with the Fist of Justice, and then immediately putting the denounces out.
You know, maybe the playstyle difference is to be aggressive and just trade the cooldowns. You know, you want to hold on to them as long as possible, and pushing in is more likely that you're going to need to use them. But in this specific matchup, I think that Tempo Storm need to end the game much faster than they did, because Dampening didn't to be proving too much of an advantage for them. So playing towards the aggressive stance as three players might have been a little bit better for them in game one. Obviously now they're in game two, and this is their last chance here to take them down. So it's a bit of a risk if they end up wanting to do that now. So I would have liked to see it in game one. Unfortunately, I think maybe Elite got a bit off put by the amount of damage that SK Game was actually outputting onto Peekaboo. But they do have defensive cooldowns early on, and that's when they need to be the most aggressive. So I would like to see Elite kind of just stand up against SK Game and say, you know what, I'm here. We've been practicing this. We're going to take you down and tie this up 1-1.
Yeah, and that's definitely what they're going to be going for here from this point. Obviously, they don't want to go they don't want to go 0-2. That's generally not your goal as a team in a best of three. So they're going to be trying to come back here. Of course, if they do win this next match, then they will have to beat SK Gaming on SK Gaming's map and counter comp choice. So they've got a hard road ahead of them if they want to be able to come out of this on top still.
Well, what do you think that Tempo Storm could change to? You know, even if they win and then it's SK Gaming's map choice, and let's say it's really close. Let's say that it cross kill or you know, everything comes down to it, and it doesn't look like the Arcane Dream is that solid. Is there anything that they can throw at them? Can they run the Holy Paladin Shatter play? Like, do you think that's worth running?
I think it would be a suicide mission if they ran the Holy Paladin Shatter play at this point. I really think their only options are Rogue Mage Druid and this Arcane Assassination Rogue Holy Paladin comps in terms of their best chances of winning. I like that they're sticking to it to try and play it through. Obviously, they're moving on to BlizzCon no matter what, so maybe they're kind of playing it out here in the tournament setting, maybe seeing if SK Gaming chokes at all. But I think after that, you can tell that they're not going to choke. They're managing the cooldowns perfectly. Every single small detail is accounted for on the side of SK Gaming. So unless Tempo Storm can find something to exploit, like I was saying, try and take advantage of Botar's Trinket, as it's basically the only cooldown that they can get guaranteed, and they know when they're going to get it, and try and play around that, let Elite come in and participate some damage, and then take some gimmicky burst kills really through Barkskin, I think is their best chance here against SK Gaming, because the standard game is exactly what they want.
Do you think it's worth even trying putting Starship in this comp, or are the bops and the Aura Mastery just so important for that Arcane Mage to get his damage?
I definitely think you need the Paladin backing it up, not to mention just the Mastery buff to buff their damage passively. You really need that increase of burst. I don't think they're going to be able to get the Resto Druid on. If they were going to put Starship in, I would expect them to be playing the Rogue Mage Druid. But also for SK Gaming, you can't forget Fabio. He's there in the center. He hasn't played any matches, even from the European Championship. However, if this did go to a Game 3, and we saw that Elite was guaranteed locked in on Holy Paladin, we might see him come forward, like I was saying, because the Affliction Warlock just deals a lot of spread pressure. They can play for a very late game, has decent peeling effects as well against the Assassination Rogue. So we might see Fabio play if this goes to a 1-1, which would be awesome to see all four players on both sides subbing in and out. This is exactly why the format was changed to a 4-player roster, and it's great to see these surprises here, even on the BlizzCon stage.
Yeah, and well, like you were saying earlier, both of these teams are guaranteed at this point to go on to BlizzCon. However, the winner is guaranteed to make it all the way through to the semis.
Which is gigantic.
That's a big deal, because the loser will have, later on we're going to have Original Gangstar versus Solari Gaming. I believe that's the match that's in this same group. I'm just trying to remember off the top of my head, but I believe that's accurate. And the loser of that will be eliminated. The winner next week will be facing off against the loser of this match to try to continue through the group stage. So if you do manage to make it through this matchup, you still, if you do not win in this matchup, you will still have another game ahead of you to be able to graduate out of the group and get into the semifinals at BlizzCon itself. So this is still an extremely important match for both of these teams. They're not going to want to try to do anything just for the lulz or whatever. They're going to come in here and be like, no, we want to do exactly what we think is going to win.
Yeah, I think Tempo Storm is very serious about the Arcane Mage Assassination Rogue. It's not a troll pig. They're not doing it for fun. I don't think they're being overly reckless either with it. Strategically, it's a good option, but SK Gaming, they obviously studied up on it and watched them a lot, because that last game, like we were saying, they looked like a wall. It's like the unstoppable force really coming from SK Gaming, and Tempo Storm need to evolve and adapt to it. They played a very standard game. It was great to respect that, and now I would like to see them kind of mix it up, go for some different targets, try and surprise SK Gaming and catch them off guard, because originally that was the whole point of picking this comp, was to surprise your opponent.
Right, and it, like you said, because of that opener, it didn't seem like it went as well as I would have expected, being like the surprise comp, you know? Like I would have expected right out of the gate, like SK Gaming doesn't know how to deal with this, and they play kind of sloppy at first, but they didn't at all. Like it was absolutely perfect.
They were almost greedy.
Yeah.
Like the amount of bursts that came out from Peekaboo and Jamili just off the bat made SK Gaming need to react, and they traded only the Vigilance for the Vendetta, knowing that they need an answer for Jamili's Arcane Power. They even need an answer really for Elite's Avenging Wrath, because that can almost be as strong as Vendetta if he's allowed to cast frequently enough to get the damage out. So again, as we've been talking about throughout all this, I really think Elite just needs to kind of step out of his comfort zone. He's obviously great and an excellent healer, but he needs to kind of participate some damage with his team, because I think that's where the real advantage is for Tempo Storm.
Well, and to that point as well, you're talking about how it wasn't really working very well as a surprise. I don't think SK Gaming was really surprised by this pick. I think they were kind of expecting, like they knew that this was something that Tempo Storm had been practicing and that had at least in their wheelhouse available for them. So I don't think SK Gaming really, I don't think there was much of a chance for it to work purely as a gimmick comp that was, if it were purely as a gimmick comp that they're like, oh, well, we didn't know how to deal with this, so we lost the first game, shucks, whatever. Like, no, this was going to be something that no matter what, Tempo was going into this thinking, we can win with this composition. And I think they can. I really think they can.
Yeah, the crowd control, the setups are really good. I mean, getting the follow-up sheep is pretty important as a mage to make sure that you're chaining the CC together, but they had so many good setups. It was just that Joe was always there exactly when he needs to be. So Vendetta comes out, Vigilance comes out, Arcane Power comes out, Shaman Rage comes out, Avenging Wrath comes out, Pre-Iron Barks out from Botar were on point throughout the entire game. There were some situations I was pointing out where if he doesn't Pre-Iron Bark, he's going to go down. Always had it, tried to read the palms. It was a little bit too early, but it's better to get it off and use it rather than say, well, you know what, you were going to die, I couldn't use it. So so really well played from Botar as well to make sure that he was always pre-iron barking those desperate situations.
Yep, and it looks like the game is now going to be getting underway here very, very shortly. We've worked through those technical issues that we were having, and we're going to get this game to you guys as soon as humanly possible. Just as a reminder, this is SK Gaming up 1-0 versus Tempo Storm. This is going to be game 2 of this series. If Tempo Storm loses this, then they will have to go down to the lower bracket and face off against the winner of Original Gangstar versus Solari Gaming, which is another series that will be coming up later today.
Yeah, and we've got so many series. This is just the first one of the day. Only getting through one game so far. Obviously, a bit of a technical delay, but it looks like we've got the next game almost underway. Team Tempo Storm playing the Arcane Mage, Assassination Rogue, Holy Paladin, and Team SK Gaming playing the Turbo Cleave, and they've played it all the way from the European Championship up to this point. I would say, however, if Tempo Storm are able to tie this up, we may get a debut of Fobs on Affliction Warlock, and I want to see that. I mean, I'm not trying to be biased, but I would like Tempo Storm to win a game here, then let Fabio kind of come out of his shell as well and play on the BlizzCon stage. When the gates have opened, we are jumping into the combat, and we can see the Shroud of Concealment out from Peekaboo again, making sure that his team is completely invisible to his opponents as they sneak forward and prepare for the attack.
All right, and everything's pretty standard. You know, Jamili is playing that Arcane Orb, the Incanter's Flow, Supernova, Cold Snap. This is a pretty much on point. Oh, he is playing Rapid Displacement though, which is kind of interesting, you know, as an Arcane Mage for that extra blink. But we'll have to see if he can get that poly off, and he does. So there is a cheap into a poly onto Joe Fernandez, and it looks like Elite is going to be playing a little bit more aggressive as he stayed on his mount, as you can see. And now he's running a little bit away with that Speed of Light, as Jamili is trying to kind of zone out the enemy team, making sure that... Oh!
He's got Palm up, and he's still got it up. I'm curious if Swapsy sees it. I think he's trying to purge it off. The Hodge comes out. Swapsy can't get it off, though. I think Jamili's going to get it.
He's behind the pillar the
Unfortunately, the Sheep comes out.
Wow.
Vigilance comes out and answers the Vendetta. Once again, Joe Fernandez with a good answer to keep Swapsy alive. We see the Gift of the Naru. They're going to be pairing that with the Vigilance to reduce and heal back some damages. Botar was caught in that polymorph, but now the Vigilance is over. Into the Growth Sounds, full blind onto Botar. Trinkets that right away, and again, this is where Tempo Storm need to take advantage of Botar using his Trinket. I would really like to see a Druid swap here soon.
Yep. They are trying to put out as much pressure as possible here. They haven't been able to force out too much in the way of cooldowns out of SK Gaming, though. Now Peekaboo caught into that bash for just a second. They're going to cause a little bit of extra damage. They're basically just trying to make Peekaboo lose track of his feint and take a ton of extra damage when that happens. Peekaboo's still trying to put out a whole bunch of damage. They do manage to force out the Iron Bark from Botar onto Swapsy, but Peekaboo's still hovering at around 40% health, but as soon as I say that, gets a nice big heal from Elite, who has popped his Avenging Wrath. Going to top him right back off, and now Tempo Storm is going to try to go back on the offensive here, but Joe Fernandez does have Avatar up, doing a bunch of damage to Jamili, who is going to have to blink right out of there. Pops the Evanesce as well, just to be able to make sure that he's going to survive.
They messed it up, though. Botar was able to shapeshift the Evanescence Poly, and Elite now getting locked on a heal. Tempo Storm aren't looking good here.
No,
in game number 2, double Shockwave out from Joe onto the DPS. Elite trying to pick his team back up as they are caught in that stun. Nice Hex out from Swapsy. Recklessness comes out from Joe. He's not able to polymorph it. Good CC from Swapsy to deny that. Peekaboo down to half HP, spamming that Feint Key. Elite trying to pick him back up. Charge now over onto Jamili. Joe trying to spread his damage apart, but as Vihel was saying, Jamili is playing double blink, so he's a much more slippery target. We see the double fear onto the DPS into the capacitor totem, well placed from Swapsy. There's the Shamanistic Rage, a little bit of a preemptive Shaman Rage out from Swapsy, trying to predict some of the incoming damage, but that is going to be an opening for Tempo Storm here down the line.
Joe Fernandez walking over towards Elite and then getting a cheap shot, so maybe he was going to go for it. The polymorph does go out onto Joe Fernandez, which does get dispelled. Peekaboo definitely has to run right here, of course, Elite is going to be playing Saved by the Light, I do believe. Let me check that real quick. Yep, he is. So they do have that extra thing to fall back. He is playing Holy Prism also, so I like that he's going to be able to have that little bit more of instant healing against these two melee.
They're looking for the kill, though. Smoke Bomb dropped onto Swapsy. Pre-Iron Bar comes out. There's the Vigilance out from Joe with the Shockwave to peel.
Wow.
This Vendetta again is going to get shut down, and Tempo Storm need to find their opportunity to kill without that Vendetta cooldown, because Joe is always going to answer it.
Yeah, great play there by Botar, getting that Iron Bark out onto Swapsy just before all of that CC came out, as well as that Smoke Bomb just shut that entire thing down. Now Swapsy, though, caught into a full kidney shot. The blind comes out onto Botar. He's going to trinket that right away, keeping his trinket lined up with that blind cooldown just to make sure he doesn't ever have to sit through a full blind. Swapsy down to about 50% health. He has a Shamanistic Rage, but he's holding on to it as long as possible. Peekaboo forced to pop the evasion to answer the Avatar coming out from Joe Fernandez. Elite actually using his Avenging Wrath as well, just trying to make sure he can keep up on the healing as much as possible. Now Botar into that full sheep. Are they going to be able to make something happen onto Swapsy here? They need to get through that that Shamanistic Rage if they want to be able to get a kill here and there. They do manage to pull out the Shamanistic Rage, but it's just as the Iron Bark's about to come up. But can they just kill him anyway? Down to 20% health. The Iron Bark comes out just in the nick of time as Botar gets put into that Garrote Silence, but Swapsy is still actually in a lot of trouble here.
That's the overlap that Tempo Storm were looking for. The next setup could easily be the game. They can take it in at least the next 20 seconds here, as long as they survive. Shockwave onto Peekaboo with no trinket, down to half HP. Elite gets locked on his heel. Cloak of Shadows is going to come out from Peekaboo to reduce Swapsy's damage. We see Polymorphs defensively. There's the Hodge into Botar. He pre-shifted it, and I don't know if Jamili is playing Ring of Frost. We see the Ring of Frost trying to come down. He connects the Ring of Frost. They could easily kill Swapsy. Swapsy trying to retreat, already out of line of sight, predicting the setup and just kiting back and forth. Peekaboo is finally going to reconnect. They need to get a kill with this setup, but Botar is no longer crowd controlled. We can see Elite trying to participate some damage, but Tempo Storm's setup is going to get shut down by Swapsy's kiting.
And there's a couple times where even Peekaboo's feint is falling off before the shockwave is landing. I think Joe Fernandez is just waiting for those little moments when Peekaboo's just going a little bit too ham and doesn't have the energy to put that feint back up. And it's happened a couple times so far, and one of the reasons why he had to trade that cloak for it. So it'll be interesting to see if Jamili can keep that crowd control up. It's awesome to see such a durable mage just be able to play inside, just right in their face, as Jamili's almost never punished.
Yep, Botar now into that full fist of justice. He's caught in caster form. He's going to get put into the full sheep. He has no trinket available. Swapsy in a lot of trouble right now. They may be able to force out the shamanistic rage, but no, they don't even get the shamanistic rage out of him. Now Botar is out of that crowd control. Swapsy's going to be completely fine right now. They've got so many cooldowns available. Meanwhile, Peekaboo caught into that bash. He does still have his feint active, and so he's not going to be in too much trouble just yet. But if this keeps up, he could be, and he is going to go ahead and use that evasion to limit the damage coming out from SK Gaming and make sure he can stay alive. Elite having to use his Avenging Wrath as well.
Yeah, Hodge over on a Botar. They're looking for the setup. Shamanistic Rage is there to answer it. Unless they can punch through it, I don't think Swapsy's going to go down. Peekaboo trying to build up some combo points, but a double Shockwave. Joe is just always there.
Yeah,
he's just the best defense man to have on your team.
It seems like Peekaboo and Jamili, when they go to burst, Jamili is almost on top of Swapsy every time. I know he has to push up for those polys and stuff, but that's a lot of disruption. Even that brief moment when he can't blink out of that stun just for that split second. So that is an interesting observation just with how they're positioning is Jamili just seems to be a little bit too close to Peekaboo when they're going for the kill on Swapsy.
Yeah, they need to spread out a little bit more. We see Avatar out from Joe. We see Pre-Ironbark out from Botar as he does not have a trinket, and there is no Sham Rage. His Ironbark is a necessity, but is going to be fading here shortly. There's about an 18-second kill window for Tempo Storm, but they're going to shut it down with the bash. We see the bop out of that immediately on Peekaboo. Here comes the setup to win the game. Elite needs to connect the Hodge. The Hodge connects. Jamili has to get the sheep. He goes for the palm. He goes for the ring. He connects the ring. Swapsy, no Sham Rage for 4 more seconds. He's trying to kite away. 3 more. 1 more second down at 40% HP, and he will have the Sham Rage now available, trying to be greedy, holding on to it. Botar will connect that Nature's Swiftness, and SK Gaming getting a little bit ahead here. He's being greedy, down to 9%. Rallying Cry comes out. Arcane Barrage is flying through from Jamili. Elite pops the Avenging Wrath. We can see all 3 of them participating damage, but Swapsy will survive with that Sham Rage, despite being a little bit greedy here. But the next setup, again, could be a kill. They're swapping some damage over onto Joe. He's caught down to 50%, forcing the Shockwave out. They're actually using it offensively onto Elite. He has his bubble available here. He's trying to hold on to it as a Saved by the Light procs. He's going to use the Stone Form as well, trying to reduce as much damage as possible, but Joe is not giving up the chase. Maybe this could be an overextension from Joe. It's not going to be. He pops the Vigilance. Ironbark is up to answer the Vendetta, and Tempo Storm once again is getting shut down.
Botar caught into that Ring of Frost, though. The Ironbark is about to wear off on Swapsy. If they have any more CC for Botar, this could be it. They get the sap onto Botar. The Garrote comes out onto Swapsy. They're limiting the amount of self-healing he can do down to 30% health. A half sheep out onto Botar, but they've just got nothing left to chain onto him, and the bop has to come out on Peekaboo, which is going to stop this pressure for a moment. But Swapsy still in trouble, but no, he's going to catch a good heal and be back up to full. And now it's Peekaboo, once again, the target of choice here. Has to pop the evasion at 40% health. That's going to keep him alive for just a little bit longer, but this is getting deep into dampening now. 18%. I don't know how much longer either of these teams can hang on.
Yep, definitely we see another setup. Sham Rage coming up from Swapsy, though, should be enough to deal with it. There's the full poly onto Botar. Tempo Storm need to be able to kill through this Sham Rage. It doesn't look like they can, though. Swapsy just kiting every time. Full blind onto Botar. Trinket answered with that once again. Sham Rage is fading. Arcane Missiles following up by Jamili. There's the defensive polymorphs coming out now as well. Joe trying to catch a reflect on one of those. Not going to find it, however. Swapsy going for a defensive Hex. He does get counterspelled on it, which means that Botar could be free, maybe to go for a clone. It seems like SK Gaming don't want to really risk anything aggressively here. Avenging Wrath comes out from Elite to recover here as Joe does connect. Cheap shot onto Joe, Hodge onto Botar. Jamili goes for the Ring of Frost. He connects it. There's no Sham Rage. There's no Trinket. This could be the game, and the comeback for Tempo Storm. They need more damage. Where is it? Swapsy caught in the last second of that kidney shot. Ironbark comes out. They don't chain the CC, and Swapsy is going to continue to survive because of it.
This is kind of not the Tempo Storm I would expect to this. They're not landing that clean CC chains, which we thought. And one of the big things is because Joe Fernandez is just such a dominating force on that battlefield, shutting so many things down.
Yeah. They're going to try and turn it back around onto Peekaboo once again. He did get caught there for just a second without his feint active, and it's about to wear off again. It was just at the last second there he gets that feint back up. It's very easy in these sorts of tense situations to not quite overlap that feint, and as we've been seeing earlier, Joe Fernandez is always there with that shockwave as soon as it drops off to be able to chunk a whole bunch more damage into him. Peekaboo just hovering at 50% health. Elite doing his best to keep him alive. Peekaboo actually having to get out of there, but Joe Fernandez is right on his tail. The smoke bomb comes down. They may be trying to turn it around onto Joe. He's going to pop the die by the sword, and he should be just fine off of that, but Peekaboo still, the triple shockwave. Elite has to trinket that to keep his teammates alive, but it's not enough. And Peekaboo is going to go down. That's going to be a 2-0 victory for SK Gaming.
Wow, just really well played from SK Gaming. Again, like it seems like they've been playing against this comp their entire life. Tempo Storm weren't able to catch a break. I can't help but feel that last
guy right
attempt.
there.
That guy right there. He's the real hero of
God.
SK Gaming, constantly there with the vigilance and with the shockwaves, perfectly timed and keeping his team alive. You can't discredit Swapsy's ability to kite. Botar always managing his cooldowns as well and pre-iron barking every exact situation. And SK Gaming played like they were almost like robots in that game, never really making a mistake and just taking advantage of the late game and dampening with the healing reduction and catching Peekaboo off guard in a stun, which means that SK Gaming have secured their spots in the semifinals moving forward in BlizzCon.
Wow. Whew. That was an intense series, and that's just our first series of the day. We got 3 more series coming up, plus a little bit later on, we're actually going to have that 6v6 Battleground exhibition, so that should be interesting as well.
You are one up. I believe the next series we're going to decide if we can tie that ball game at all. But that was a really exciting series. I'm glad that Tempo Storm were experimenting, but they just didn't catch a break. SK Gaming were prepared.
All right, and we do have Jackson over with the Windows 10 game DVR replay, and let's see what he saw during those games.
Hey, thanks, guys. Now, when you see 2 colossal teams like these clash, you know it's going to be a battle of the Titans. Let's swap it over to the replay real quick and see how this thing goes. So, we knew once again that SK Gaming knew how to play defensively. And not only that, Joe Fernandez was on top of every single setup. He always had a shockwave or a fear, and if he had his trinket available, he was able to vigilance the vendetta every time. And if they were able to survive, then they can time this game out. They can constantly survive these openers, these setups that Tempo Storm was going for. And once again, even in a very dire situation where Joe Fernandez got caught in a smoke bomb, they instantly turn things around because they're all stacked up again. He lands a triple shockwave, and just like that, Peekaboo goes down with a Storm Strike and an Execute. This game was absolutely intense, but once again, it's that solid defensive playstyle that this Turbo Cleave is definitely up to task for. The solid cooldown usage, but also you cannot discredit the kiting capacity of Swapsy, constantly behind the pillar when his team didn't have cooldowns for him. Every setup, you could hear Tempo Storm in the studio said, "I can't hit him, I can't hit him." I think that's why Jamili took a double blink to try to blink around pillars to try to hit Swapsy whenever they had their setup going. But SK Gaming was definitely ready for it, and that's why they got that 2-0 victory over him. We're going to be hearing from Joe Fernandez, the team captain, and the Warrior God himself, right after we talk to the casters.
All right, thanks so much, Jackson. And yeah, I definitely feel like Joe Fernandez was a major contributing factor in that matchup.
There was so many times when they were going on Swapsy and Peekaboo and Elite were both trying to get over there, and you just saw Joe Fernandez going back and forth, just snaring both of them, just not even the shockwaves or anything, just making sure that they couldn't even waddle their way over to connect onto Swapsy.
And the interesting part about Arcane Mage is you're often actually trying to trick your opponent into attacking you. So I wonder if he was overly defensively glyphed, taking the double blink and making it to a point where he couldn't be touched, because in reality, he wants them to attack him. So I'm curious maybe if that ended up backfiring on him at all. We don't get to see this matchup that often, as the Arcane Mage spec in general is kind of just rising up in terms of a ladder and a BlizzCon viable class. So I'll be curious to see if they end up playing this composition again later down the road, if they do face SK Game later in the tournament. However, it just didn't work out for them here today, and that means that SK Gaming have locked themselves in the semifinals for BlizzCon, as Tempo Storm will need to continue battling it out.
Yep. We're actually going to take a look real quick at what some of the upcoming matches we're going to see throughout the rest of the day are going to be. Just as a quick reminder here, we are going to have Cloud9 versus Skillcap DU coming up next. That's going to be an exciting series. And then after that, we've got our 2 elimination matches. That's going to be Original Gangstar versus Solari Gaming, followed by Do It For Fun versus Follow Esports. And in both of those 2 final series, one team is going home. They will not continue on in the tournament.
And that's kind of a sad story, really, to come here all this time. I mean, you get a bit of a paid vacation, but these guys are here to play for the love of the game.
They really are.
And to play on the stage. So it is going to be breaking some hearts later in the day. You guys definitely want to stay tuned for it. I'm excited to see if the Asian regions can redeem themselves, as they did lose 2-0 in the initial round. I can't help but feel that the Korean team do it for fun. We're robbed a little bit of their
I think both of them were saying that this was their hardest matchup of the day.
It definitely was.
Or of the entire tournament, was this first opening match. So now that they've made it past it, you know, they're now comfortable on stage. Those guys were just playing absolutely perfectly. Like, a lot of those matches came down just to the very, very last moment. So it'll be exciting to see if those guys can bounce back, since both of them are in the lower bracket at this point.
Yep, and we are about to hear it from the man himself, Joe Fernandez, who is over with Jackson at the analyst station for our winner's interview.
Hey guys, like you just heard from Laura, I am joined by Joe Fernandez, team captain and victorious 2-0 winner here. So that was a pretty intense match right off the bat. And I'm wondering, what do you think about their choice to play Arcane?
It was quite a difficult matchup because we saw they could pretty much insta-gib us. And I think they chose it because they were too afraid to RMD into us.
So it seemed like you guys knew how to handle Arcane. Is that something that you did a lot of practice for during the week of, or is that something that you guys just kind of like pen and paper broke it down in terms of, because you guys responded to cooldowns beautifully?
We actually only had 4 games against them, but we didn't have practice at all, but we have great knowledge of the game, so we knew what to expect.
So we're making a big deal about this whole NA versus EU thing. Is that something that's on your mind when you're playing, or are you just focused on winning games?
It's on my mind, yeah. I mean, you can tell that the US teams are definitely below the EU teams, and we came here and proved that today.
Awesome. Some strong words from Joe Fernandez, but I think he can back it up with his gameplay. So congratulations. We are going to go to a quick commercial break, but we'll be right back for more awesome arena matches.
Okay, I actually don't want to say that.
No?
But it's true. Okay, I'll say it.
Yeah.
So, to get a clear mind before a game, it's always a good idea to work out. Yeah. Also, make sure you're not hungry.
Can you say that again?
No. That's too weird. If we win BlizzCon, we'll still be like streaming.
Anything fun celebration-wise?
Maybe. I don't know yet.
Hello, my name is Raiku and I play Mage for Skillcapped EU.
Hello, my name is Healingstad and I will be playing Restoration Druid and Holy Paladin for Skillcapped.
I'm Pry and I play Rogue for Skillcapped.
I'm Ville, I'm the team captain of Skillcapped EU.
For us it's really important to be here because I think we are one of the strongest teams in EU.
We actually only came together about a week before the first qualifier, yeah. We had a little bit of a bumpy start, but our synergy's much stronger now.
We've prepared for every single team that's here.
None of the US teams have ever played at BlizzCon before. A lot of us have played at multiple regionals or qualified for multiple regionals.
Everyone underestimates the North American teams. And I tell my team every time, don't underestimate them.
We are certain we're going to beat the NA teams at this BlizzCon.
I think there is no team I'm really scared of because we can beat everyone here.
SK Gaming, I wouldn't mind knocking out. They're really strong players and they play a really good comp.
We really do see SK Gaming being a big milestone for us.
I really want to knock out SK Gaming because we lost 3-2 on regionals against them.
They're pretty cocky as well, really cocky. So if they lost, I wouldn't mind.
Our rogue Prey has even lost sleep because of countless nights he wakes up in the middle of the night, he starts typing in Skype that he has a new strategy he wants to try out tomorrow.
We were kind of obsessed about beating them now.
This time we're not going to lose against them.